Hey everybody, we're talking about do-it-yourself, no filing fees. So let's get going. If you pay filing fees, this is what you're doing. You're paying for the errors and omissions insurance for the bail priest. You're converting a court case into a commercial transaction. You're giving yourself an admiralty court. You're saying that you're a U.S. citizen. You're converting yourself into their slave and begging for their help. You're giving the bail priest clerk masquerading as a judge the opportunity to sit there and play stupid. And they're real good at that. And you're saying that you're a taxpayer. This is the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, located at 48 Stat 337. Anyways, in Section 15, it says, as used in this act, the term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States, which includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. So the point being is that if you use Federal Reserve notes, you're saying, again, that goes back to all of this here, okay? You're saying that you're a U.S. citizen. It's internal use of the government only. The Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. And when you use them, and that's how they want their filing fees, okay? So keep that in mind. So filing fees are extortion. They're an excise tax and they're an extortion is what they are. They're converting a right into a privilege. And this is Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1843 edition, volume 2, page 53. Talks about this is a license. Okay, a license is a contract, is a right given by some competent authority to do an act without which such authority would be illegal. Okay, the instrument or writing to secure this right is also called a license. A license is express or implied. An express license is one which, in direct terms, authorizes the performance of a certain act, as a license to keep a tavern by public authority. An implied license is one which, though not expressly given, may be presumed from the acts of the party having the right to give it. And that's what filing fees are. They're an implied license. Okay, and this is the license tax cases. The requirement of the mode of payment for such licenses is only a mode of imposing taxes. Okay, so licenses, the only purpose of a license is to impose a tax. It's to, on the licensed business, and the prohibition under penalties against carrying on the business without license is only a mode of enforcing the payment of such taxes. The recognition by the acts of Congress of the power and right of the states to tax, control, or regulate any business carried on within its limits is entirely consistent with an intention on the part of Congress to tax such business for national purposes. So again, it's all commercial, and they're converting a right into a privilege. This is Longborough versus Blake, another U.S. Supreme Court case. If it were true that according to the spirit of our Constitution, the power of taxation must be limited by the right of representation, whence is derived the right to lay and collect duties, imposts, excises within this district, that the principles of liberty and of our Constitution forbid the raising of revenue from those who are not represented. Do not these principles forbid the raising of it by duties, imposts, and excises, as well as by direct tax? Okay, so there's no taxation without representation, okay? They have to represent you. The individual, unlike the corporation, cannot be taxed with the mere privilege of existing. The corporation is an artificial entity which owes its existence and charter powers to the state, but the individual's rights to live and own property are natural rights for the enjoyment of which an excise cannot be imposed. And so, again, the living souls cannot be taxed. The claim and exercise of a constitutional guaranteed right cannot be converted into a crime. No state shall convert a liberty into a privilege, license it, and charge a fee therefor. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of his exercise of constitutional rights. If the state converts a right or liberty into a privilege, the citizen can ignore the license and fee and engage in the right with impunity. So what do their codes say? This is 28 U.S.C. Section 1914, the District Court filing and miscellaneous fees, rules of the court. The clerk of each district shall require the parties, notice it says parties, instituting any civil action, suit, or proceeding in such court, whether by original process, removal, or otherwise, to pay a filing fee. And says the filing fee is $350, and for habeas corpus is $5. They always got to get that extortion, okay? They absolutely have to. If you're a U.S. citizen, they got to get that extortion. And the clerk shall collect from the parties such additional fees only as prescribed by the Judicial Conference of the United States, okay? So they go and change it's a regulation, okay? And but you have to understand that a code is only what some liar's opinion of the statutes say, because the statutes are the actual law, okay? And so a code is only what some liar's opinion of the statutes, of what they say. So it's a liar's opinion of what they say. So let's go and see what the statutes say. This is Legal Information Institute. And if you look on the left there, it says U.S. Code, and then it says Notes. The U.S. Code is there's two tabs there. The U.S. Code is talking about what we just talked about it, okay? 28 U.S.C. Section 1914 and Notes. And so then this goes into where all of that comes from, okay? And so then 28 U.S.C. Section 1940 edition 559, okay, so back in 1940, it was different sections. They recodified it subsequent to that. And then there's a revised statutes prior to that, which again, the revised statutes are again some liar's opinion of what the actual statutes or the statutes say. And so we'll go to the actual statutes, and the first statute is 32 Stat 476, Chapter 1301. And so let's go there, and that's what this is, 32 Stat, actually 419, because that's the beginning, 476. This is an appropriations bill. It's hundreds of pages. Well, may not be hundreds, but it's certainly about 70 or 80, 60 pages beyond here. This is the preamble, says Chapter 1301. This is the preamble of that act, and it's an act making appropriations. And the point I want to make is that Congress is using an appropriations bill to pass legislation, and they can't do that. And so this is 32 Stat 475, which is the page before the particular section that they're talking about. And expenses of United States courts, okay, for defraying the expenses of the Supreme Court, the Circuit and District Courts of the United States, including, okay, so then the word including is limiting, okay, the District Court of the Territory of Hawaii, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals of the District of Columbia, the District Court of Alaska, the Courts of the Indian Territory, and the Circuit Courts of Appeals and the Court of Private Land Claims. Those are all territorial courts. All those courts are in the District of Columbia. And so these are all, it's talking about territorial courts here. And so anyways, that's the point I wanted to make with this. Now we'll go to 476, which is what's talked about in that as the history for this filing fees. And it says for fees of the clerks, it says $240,000 provided, and then it goes on. It says, and the word emolument shall be understood as including all amounts received in connection with the admission of attorneys to practice in the court, all amounts received for services and naturalization proceedings, whether rendered as a clerk, as a commissioner, or any other capacity, and all other amounts received for services in any way connected with the clerk's office. So really, the only filing fees are required for when liars are admitted to practice in the court and for naturalization proceedings, okay? And, you know, DC and U.S. citizens, okay? And so, anyways, so this is emolument. This is Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. An emolument is any advantage, profit, or gain received as a result of one's employment or one's holding of office, okay? So the clerk gets to keep the money, Okay, that's essentially what happens. The clerk gets to keep the money. And this is the Act of 1871. It says, be it further enacted that every bill shall be read at large on 3 different days in each house. No act shall embrace more than one subject, and that shall be expressed in its title. And if any subject shall be embraced in an act which shall not be expressed in the title, such act shall be void, only to so much therefore as shall not be expressed in the title. Okay, so the point being is that they're putting legislation in an appropriations bill. And so the legislation part of it is not in the title. And so therefore that's a nullity. It's void. And then if you go on, the Supreme Court has even said that, okay? This is Andrus versus Sierra Club, 442 U.S. 347. The traditional distinction which Congress has drawn between legislation and appropriation, the rules of both houses prohibiting legislation from being added to an appropriations bill, okay? And so, again, their own rules say they cannot be doing that, okay? So, why should that be a surprise? They're a bunch of Satanists. Then there's the Judicial Code of 1911, okay, and it repeals the oldest act that's repealed by the Judicial Code of 1911 is an act to determine the jurisdiction of the Circuit Courts of the United States and regulate the removal of causes from state courts and for other purposes, and that's March 3rd, 1875. The point being is that's D.C. and the territories. Okay, that's why they're talking about that, D.C. and the territories. They didn't do anything after 1861 that affected all of the states, okay, because they had no authority. This is 43 Stat 857, okay, and this is actually quite lengthy. We're going to go through this, but there's certain points I want to point out, and we'll breeze through it pretty fast. But so if you want to read the actual text, I put the actual text of the whole act in here. So if you want to read it, pause the video. And so, but anyways, it says here that the fees hereinafter provided for and no other shall be charged and collected by the clerks of the District Courts of the United States for services performed by them or their assistants, and then provided that all laws or parts of laws inconsistent or repugnant to the provisions of the Acts of July 20th, 1892, which is 27 Stat 252, and so they're talking about 27 Stat 252, 36 Stat 866, and 42 Stat 666. And so it can't be inconsistent with that. And so we're going to go and talk about those two. Anyway, so let's go. Section 2 says, upon the institution of any suit or proceeding, whether by original process, removal, indictment, information, or otherwise, there shall be paid by the party or parties so instituting such suit or proceeding as fee to the clerk for all services to be performed by him in such case or proceeding, except as hereinafter provided, the sum of $5. Okay, so the point being is that it talks about party or parties, which is another word for U.S. citizen. Okay, so party or parties, okay, every section, okay, this is section 3, and it talks about party or parties, okay, and this is section 4, and it talks about party or parties, and this is section 5, and it talks about party or parties, and section 6, it talks about petitioner or applicant, okay, those are persons again, okay, and that means it's U.S. citizens, and section 7, party or parties. Okay, and then it goes on, it even says from either party. And section 8, and the clerk shall charge miscellaneous services except when on behalf of the United States the following fees. And so, and then they go through a bunch of fees here. But it's all talking about party or parties. And so, and then in section 14 it talks about what liars have to pay. And so these courts, and we're going to go into this CRIS, okay, which is the Court Registry Information System, and that's a real money-making scam, that is, I'll tell you. And so we're going to go through that, but that's only applicable for U.S. citizens, okay? That's a foreign corporation when they're operating in that capacity. And so, so we're just laying a foundation here to understand what's going on and who this applies to. So, party. A person who takes part in a legal transaction or proceeding is said to be a party to it, okay? A contract, okay? See, that's a proceeding. A legal transaction is a proceeding. A proceeding is a legal transaction. So it's a contract applied to persons named as grantors or releasers in the deed poll, okay? So that's just another way that it's used. This Black's Law Dictionary 8th edition, which is citing this a Dictionary of American English Law in 1883. So the point being is that it's all for U.S. citizens, and that's it, persons, okay, which is U.S. citizens. So then this 27 Stat 252, okay, which is an act providing when plaintiff may sue as a poor person and when counsel shall be assigned by the court, okay, so they give you a liar. Any citizen of the United States, okay, so it's got to be a citizen of the United States, can be poor. Plaintiff. Okay, they've got U.S. citizen written all over this thing. Poor person. How can a fiction be poor? I guess a fiction could. Anyways, informa pauperis. Okay, this is 36 Stat 866. And it's talking about informa pauperis and U.S. citizens again. And this is 42 Stat 666, informa pauperis and U.S. citizens again. And 44 Stat 1023 is amending 43 Stat 857, okay, which we already talked about. It's all about U.S. citizens and parties, okay. And 45 Stat 54 is talking about a writ of error, and so that doesn't have much to do with a filing fee, so we'll breeze over that one. 56 Stat 122 is amending 43 Stat 857, okay, which is the filing fees for parties, okay, which is U.S. citizens. An act to amend an act, this is 58 Stat 743 and 744, which is amending 43 Stat 857. Again, okay, they're talking about parties, which is U.S. citizens. The first citation in the revised statutes, so the summary is, the first citations is the revised statutes, which are color of law. That's some liar's opinion of what the statutes actually say. The second citation is 32 Stat 476, which is an appropriations bill. It's effective only for the District of Columbia and the territories, and under their own rules, they're not allowed to add legislation to an appropriations bill, and an act may only contain what's expressed in the title of the act. So therefore, any legislation they put in an appropriations bill is void. The third citation is 43 Stat 857, which is talking about filing fees for parties, okay, and so, which is U.S. citizens. And then it also references 27 Stat 252, 36 Stat 866, and 42 Stat 666, which all talk about U.S. citizens and informa pauperis proceedings. The fourth citation is 44 Stat 1023, which is amending 43 Stat 857. Fifth citation is 45 Stat 54, which is abolishing writs of error. Sixth citation is 56 Stat 122, which is amending 43 Stat 857. Seventh and final citations 58 Stat 743 and 744, which is amending 43 Stat 857. It's all talking about U.S. citizens, parties, persons. The oldest act talked about was 27 Stat 252, which is approved July 20th, 1892. Only U.S. citizens are required to pay filing fees or taxes or extortion. It's only required in the District of Columbia and the territories. Only attorneys are required to pay filing fees, and it's only for naturalization proceedings. So these people are all Satanists, okay? They're thieves, okay? And remember, the clerk collects the money, puts it in his pocket, so he's motivated to be a thief, okay? And so these people are not interested in justice, okay? They're nothing but a bunch of thieves. So why would you go and contribute to their racket? Anyways, they're Satanists. There's a guy by the name of Mark Passio, who's a former Satanist priest, okay? So who would know more about this than a former Satanist priest? He's got these natural law videos. He talks about the pillars of Satanism, moral relativism. There's no absolute right or wrong. Truth is relative. We just make it up what's right or wrong. Gee, that sounds like a court case. What's right or wrong is what we decide today, and tomorrow it could be something else. Okay? Gee, that sounds like a court case. 2/3 of the people believe in moral relativism. Forms of mind control is survival, the highest law of Satanism, social Darwinism. Certain classes of society think they're most fit to rule, postulates the survival of the most socially ruthless, ultimate responsibility of self-preservation, eugenics, where the elite get to determine who lives or dies. Okay, so these are all pillars of Satanism. And then the last pillar of Satanism that I want to talk about today is order followers. Okay, and these people are order followers. Okay, and order followers are responsible for all the atrocities in history. Passio's got a great video on order followers. You ought to watch it. Anyways, say they just follow orders without thinking about whether it's a lawful order or not. And if you think about it, that's exactly, I mean, whether it's the people that were murdered in any war, all of the atrocities in history, Cambodia, all of the atrocities in history are committed by order followers, people that are following unlawful orders, okay, that do what they're told and don't question it, okay? And they're willing slaves, okay? And this is Mark Passio's YouTube channel. Highly recommend it. Brilliant guy. Had to learn Latin in high school, and so he goes into the derivative of these words. Some examples of order followers is the World War II war crimes tribunals. All the Nazis claimed they were just following orders, and they were obviously Satanists. They suffered death by hanging or spent the rest of their life in jail. Some of them are still hunted to this day. The Vietnam War, the My Lai massacre, convicted of murder. Today, order followers are everywhere. Things you see every day using the satanic philosophy of moral relativism is false flag operations. The end justifies the means. Agent provocateurs, the end justifies the means. Entrapment, the end justifies the means. Which, if you think about it, entrapment is just an agent provocateur that got caught. And all court cases are kangaroo courts. Unless it's a common law court, it's Satanism, okay? And one thing I wanted to just go over here real quick is back here where Passio talks about how 2/3 of the people believe in moral relativism. Well, actually, I think he's being rather generous, because I think it's more like about 90%, because of all these 501c3 tax-exempt organizations that are masquerading as churches. Speaking of one, I was raised as a Mormon, quite frankly, and I was always taught that as long as you're following orders, then you're okay. Well, that's not true, okay? Following orders is not okay if it's an unlawful command, and everybody has to make a decision about whether it's a lawful command or not. And if it's an unlawful command, you should not follow it, okay? And I don't care who you are. And the Nazis found out that they shouldn't have been following those unlawful orders. And so anyways, PIG is an acronym, stands for persons in government who intend to perjure their oath. Could also be called a wordism, since it's also used as a word. Okay, so these people are pigs. So the real solution is file a lawsuit as a man, okay, and I a man, okay, and not as a petitioner or plaintiff or anything else, as a man. And not as a U.S. citizen. Carl Lentz actually has a great one-page lawsuit, and that's the one that I would use that as an example, and file it as a man, not as a U.S. citizen. Demand an Article 3 judge operating in an Article 3 capacity. Okay, now you have to understand, just because you get an Article 3 judge doesn't mean he's operating in Article 3 capacity. These lying Satanist whores do this all the time, okay? They'll go and put on their website how they have all these Article 3 judges. Matter of fact, the last time I went to the Supreme Court, I even asked them, under what authority does the Fifth Circuit say they have Article 3 judges when they have no Article 3 court? Because one of the requirements for an Article 3 court is they have to convene a jury, a common law jury, and no Court of Appeals convenes any juries, okay? And so they're a bunch of lying Satanists is what they are. And it's amazing how that happened, because now all of a sudden they don't put anything about having Article 3 judges on their website anymore. It's amazing. So now I got to file one against the Ninth Circuit whores, because they do exactly the same thing. And so even in the district court, Okay, just because you get an Article 3 judge doesn't mean he's operating in an Article 3 capacity. If they can fabricate evidence that you're one of the slaves, then they'll go into an Article 1 capacity, okay? And so you have to understand that, and so I would, make sure and define what an Article 3 judge is, okay, and what an article that you don't want one of their clerks masquerading as a judge under Article 1, and et cetera, okay. And so, because these people are Satanists, they're liars, they're thieves, they're murderers. How many people have they put to death based on their so-called laws? Okay, they're nothing but a bunch of Satanists. This video is not intended to scare anyone or make them feel like all is lost, because it absolutely is not. We need to know what the problem is before we can know what a good solution is. And actually, the real good solution is for we, the people, to get off our backside and start convening our common law juries and start putting these Satanists on trial. And if they deserve to be put to death, then they ought to be put to death. And that's what needs to happen. But until that happens, it's going to get the same. We're going to keep getting the same stuff that's been going on. So the bottom line is never, ever, ever give up. And you can file a lawsuit into their federal court, and you can put them in a position, I believe, that you'll, hopefully you get a decent judge, but there's always appeals, make more money for their whores. But but the bottom line is never, ever, ever give up. It's never over until you say it's over. I know thy works and tribulation, and I know the blasphemy of them that say they're Jews or Christians or whatever, and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Their judgment day is coming. Ye are the father of the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. And that's basically all fraud is lies, and all lies is Satanism, okay? And these people are Satanists. Everything they do is a fraud. It's a lie. And so you have to understand that. And but the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Okay, so if you're afraid to stand up for your rights, then I don't know how good you're going to do on Judgment Day. So I hope that you are not afraid and you do stand up for your rights. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, I'm spelling it out right here. I mean, look it up if you want to find out for yourself. But if you don't believe it, then that might be a problem for you too. And anyways, you'll be categorized amongst the murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers. Okay, the sorcerers are all these drug pusher pharmaceutical companies, and they're drug pushers. Okay, all these medical doctors that are pushing their potions. Okay. Anyways, don't get me going. So by which he went and preached to the spirits in prison. Okay, spirit prison is hell. Okay, and it shall come to pass in that day the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on the high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and they'll be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. Okay, so they're all going to hell, these Satanists. And so it behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist invasions of it in the case of others, or their case may, by change of circumstance, become his own. So that's why I'm doing this, one of the reasons. If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may our posterity forget that you are ever our countrymen. And nobody could have said it better than Samuel Adams. Brilliant guy. When shall it be said in any country of the world, my poor are happy, neither ignorance or distress is to be found among them. My jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars, the aged are not in want, the tax is not oppressive, the rational world is my friend, because I am friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast of its constitution and government, while we have absolutely nothing to boast about here, that we have these Satanist order followers running around populating the prisons. We have the streets are full of beggars. The aids darn want. Taxes are oppressive. And people like me that are denied the right to pursue happiness because of these Satanists. And so we have absolutely nothing to brag about here. But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, and the sword come and take any person from among them, he's taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hands. And so this is my effort to make sure that I'm blameless on Judgment Day. And I hope that you are too, but that's going to be depending on what you do. Okay? Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. You're now a watchman. Circulate this video far and wide. Okay? I hope that you're blameless too. Other videos, I've got over 230 videos. Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3. Churchianity series. No such thing as a bank loan. Bar members 1, 2, and 3. Do-it-yourself kangaroo courts, martial laws here. Do-it-yourself traffic stop. Do-it-yourself free mail. Azel pigs 1, 2, 3, and 4. Texas DPS pigs and others. So I highly encourage you to watch the videos to see what's going on, so that you can protect yourself and do your part to resist this tyranny. Okay, these people are tyrants, and the founding fathers understood this fully, and we're having to learn it again. And copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for a donation. And the final paragraph here is for all the Satanist order follower thieves that seem to think I'm getting some privilege or benefit. They can put their privileges and benefits up their rectal orifice. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can't accept the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. If you found this useful, then you need to pay it forward. If you don't know what pay it forward means, then watch the movie. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page was deleted due to Facebook censorship. My private group, Sovereignty International on Facebook, is being deleted. And how do you hurt Facebook? I'm publishing a video. It's going to go active here pretty soon. It goes through how to hurt Facebook, because they make their money on all the networks and associations that people have. And so delete, unfriend all your friends, remove yourself from all the groups, and then once you've removed yourself from all your groups and unfriended all your friends and removed all the associations you have, then delete the profile. And that's how you hurt Facebook. My Yahoo private group is Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. My Google private group is Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video today. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you do your part to spread the word, so that we're all held blameless on Judgment Day. And thanks for watching, and I hope you have a real nice day.